So how did we get from 4 young people knocking themselves out, trying to do everything, spoiler alert here, to this crazy underground cave system where we're aging cheese for other producers and for more of our own creameries. So Cabot Creamery is right up the road from us. If you have ever been in a grocery store in the Northeast, you're familiar with the Cabot brand. It is like the standby everyday cheddar, really high quality. They win tons of awards, but it's a different kind of cheese than what you'd find in a cut to order counter in the artisan cheese world. But they're paying attention certainly to what's going on in the market. They love great cheeses, and they would go into these cheese shops and see their cheese right there in the dairy case. And then in the cut to order counter, they would see like an imported British cheddar. And a monger there like hand tasting it out, and they're like, but we want our cheese to be there. But the barrier to entry into the artisan set for them was really the cave aging. It's growing natural flora on the outside of the cheese, and that's pretty antithetical to the tight ship that they run in their production facility. They actually measure the spore load count in the air and have filtration systems to keep it very mold free. So this wasn't really like their MO. So they reached out to the Vermont cheesemaking community and said, hey, anyone want to put a rind on our cheese? And Andy and Mateo were like the only ones who got back to them, and were like, yeah, we'll grow mold on that. And so they got some wheels in the basement of the farmhouse, did some ripening for a year, wrapped them with cloth, and you rub them with lard. And then a year later, it was great, but it wasn't a good fit for the Cabot sales team. They were selling truckloads of cheese into different places in the market. And so, Andy Mateo kind of like anxiously waited to see how that first batch went in the market, because it was a nice little rent check every month for them to take care of and get those affinage kudos. And they were like, oh, it was really fun. We're definitely going to serve it at the company party, but we probably won't keep doing it just because there's too expensive and small production and esoteric. And thanks anyway. And Andy and Mateo were like, well, wait, do you need any help placing it? Because meanwhile, they're on the phone with those like 200 influencers in the market every week taking orders. And there wasn't really an American Clothbound cheddar at the time. So they sort of convinced Cabot to let them try to place some. And they were able to, place the extra wheels, no problem. Everybody was sort of scrambling for it. Jasper Hill and a Clothbound cheddar, yeah, let's do it. So they entered it in the American Cheese Society conference, centered in the story here, and it won Best of Show its first year on the market, which is like winning the Super Bowl your first year as a team. It's really an amazing thing. So that catapulted them to the next phase of the business within their first few years of existence. So by their 5th year of selling cheese, they had finished construction on the 7 vaulted underground 22,000 square foot ripening facility, which is just sort of hard to imagine from those early days phases. But what it really allowed them to do was get enough large format Cabot Clothbound that's made in the bigger production facility up the road at Cabot onto the shelves, and then onto pallets. And that's when they could get a refrigerated truck to show up. That's when they could start having conversations with distributors. They had enough cheese, enough weight to sort of get into a national distribution network, and then they could sprinkle their small production cheeses on top. And that's when they started thinking to themselves, okay, who else has cheese that could, piggyback on this pallet and ride out to market, instead of doing all of that high touch, direct consumer, expensive packaging, hard to control the temperature of shipping. So this was really a breakthrough for the company, and allowed us to take it to the next level. So here's just a couple more scenes from the caves these days. We saw the Bloomy Rind cave in action. This is what we call the ellipse, sort of the hallway in between the vaults, which is a very bustling place. Here's like a lab technician taking some compositional data, measuring the pH and moisture of a developing batch. There's Mateo in his underground bunker masterpiece. We have the lift here that we use to get cheese up and down from the tall shelves, and then our natural-rind cave where Bailey, Hayes, and Blue would live in our tome styles. So just a couple snapshots of what that facility looks like today, and it's really been greatly impactful in our rural area, being able to get our cheeses farther away from home into metropolitan areas, take the cash from those sales, and then reinvest it in our local area has been has had a huge impact on our community in a positive way. So we're really proud of that, and that's our whole MO, is just like building pipelines to where the people are, and then bringing the resources back here. We actually track our expenses by zip code, and we measure over time, you know, how far away the dollars spent go, and we try to keep that as tight as possible to have the biggest impact as we can in a close place. So Michael's put together an awesome series of content for this month. If this is the first one that you've tuned in for, I highly encourage you to check out the other ones that he's put together. I'm going to do 2 more, one pairing chocolate and wine, and the other bourbon and some charcuterie. So we've got a lot of fun stuff coming down the pike. And you're also able to order a tasting set from Jasper Hill. That's going to be the same cheeses that we're going to use in different settings. So this was the story of Jasper Hill and the artisan cheese movement. And then in the pairing classes, we're really going to dive deep into the sensory properties of each cheese and pair them with other things. So you can pick up that tasting kit at jasperhillfarm.com/shop. And then there's a link to that specific tasting kit for these classes. So I'm so happy to be able to be here today to share the story of Jasper Hill and my love of cheese, obviously. And thanks for supporting American Cheese Month and American cheese producers all over the country. I hope you have a lot of fun tasting and learning more about it. Thank you so much, Michael, for having me.